stop believing he is unbeatable. The hunt for gods is about to begin. This war has only reached day 6. But, according to a spokesman for Iran's Revolutionary Guard, Iran has already killed more than 650 U.S. troops, hitting nearly every U.S. base in the Middle East, as well as countless military outposts. Beyond that, 3 U.S. F-15 fighter jets were also shot down, although Americans claim it was accidental friendly fire from Kuwait. This is still the first recorded F-15 shootdown. The spokesman also claimed that several U.S. destroyers were attacked, and even 4 cruise missiles struck the U.S. nuclear-powered carrier, the Lincoln. What has now been confirmed is that a U.S. strategic support ship was hit and lost combat capability. Of course, as always, the Americans claim the carrier is completely unharmed, but the Lincoln quietly moved toward the Indian Ocean, among the U.S. bases bombarded by Iran. The worst losses were at the air base in Bahrain. In just the 14th wave of missile strikes, 20 suicide drones directly at the command center, 3 cruise missiles struck key facilities, and the entire base turned into a sea of fire. The dead and wounded exceeded 160. Yet this is still not the biggest result. Iran's real victory lies in the irreversible damage to U.S. radar and air defense systems in the Middle East. According to multiple media reports, the most expensive U.S. equipment lost in the Middle East is the AN/FPS-132 Pave Paws early warning radar. This radar is located at Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar. It costs $1.1 billion, making it the costliest single U.S. loss in the region. This radar has a detection range of about 5,000 kilometers. It can be called the most important strategic asset for battlefield awareness and missile defense. Early warning in the Middle East. Beyond that, many U.S. THAAD systems were also destroyed in just 5 days of war. 3 THAAD missile defense systems were blown into scrap, 2 in the UAE, and 1 in Jordan. You should know, a THAAD system like this, the U.S. has only 7 in total. 2 of them were assigned to the Asia-Pacific. Now 3 were destroyed at once in the Middle East. For U.S. air defense, this is a massive loss. The Americans are now forced to move THAAD from the Asia-Pacific to the Middle East. Even so, according to U.S. reports themselves, the U.S. military has already lost more than $2.1 billion in equipment in the Middle East. The real figure is even higher, compared with equipment losses. The bigger problem for the U.S. military is that it has wasted its precious missiles on Iran. This will create opportunities for America's strategic rivals in the Asia-Pacific and Eastern Europe. You should know, the United States has already fired over 200 Tomahawk missiles. A reasonable estimate puts total U.S. Tomahawk launches at around 300 to 400. You should know, the U.S. military produces fewer than 100 Tomahawk missiles a year, and current stockpiles are below 1,200 Tomahawks. As a key pillar of U.S. strategic guided munitions, as the war drags on, U.S. ammunition is nearing exhaustion. From a long-term strategic view, this is both a political and military double suicide. Now, Trump has to face 2 problems. Either in fighting the Iranians, he burns through all of America's precious guided munitions, and the U.S. will completely lose its superpower status. Or it loses this war and still gives up its superpower status. What do you call that? 1 dead end turning into 2 poisoned ends. America's precious precision-guided munitions. And advanced fighter jets are being drained in the Middle East. On top of that, the earlier strategic deployment to Venezuela pulled away a large number of U.S. troops. A global U.S. military contraction has become inevitable. U.S. imperialism has put the noose around its own neck. And remember, the U.S. military is not fighting only one war. On the Russia-Ukraine front, heavy U.S. military support is still needed. If Russia wins the Russia-Ukraine war, it will mean that since 2022, all of America's aid to Ukraine, worth hundreds of billions, will have gone down the drain. Direct economic and military losses can still be accepted. For Trump, the truly unacceptable blow is the political damage. On March 2nd alone, more than 20 U.S. states and 50 cities saw dozens of large-scale anti-war protests, protesting Trump for launching military action against Iran on his own. The Democrats also seized this chance to go after Trump. So now quite a few Democratic lawmakers have jointly claimed this action violated the Constitution and was completely illegal from start to finish. Now all the pressure has fallen on Trump. He not only faces international pressure and military pressure from Iran, but also pressure at home. The midterm elections are approaching. Whether Trump can use the rest of his term to push his policies smoothly depends on whether he can win these midterms. That's also why, in the first 3 months of 2026, he launched several large-scale military operations. He desperately needs a military victory to boost himself again. That is exactly what the United States cannot make even the slightest concession in the war against Iran. And Iran likewise cannot back down to the U.S. unless one side can no longer sustain the war. The U.S. military is indeed powerful, but it is not unbeatable. Iran's vast territory and more than 500,000 armed personnel cannot simply be eliminated by missiles and airstrikes alone. To truly crush Iran, ground forces would have to be used. And to reduce U.S. casualties, Trump clearly does not dare and cannot send the army into ground combat. So Trump, can only keep increasing ammunition consumption. That also means, in the end, U.S. imperialism will strangle itself alive. As the saying goes, evil brings self-destruction. That line is clearly the best explanation of the final fate of U.S. imperialism. All right, for more global affairs updates, please follow Channel Legion. See you in the next episode.